All right, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here. So I shared this message a while ago. You were saying you were 6 years old last time I shared it, and then again in 2020. Anyways, the point is, I've since I was little, I worked on this cube, learning it, and I've really enjoyed this puzzle and wanted to share a few things. This was back in 2016 when we didn't have a pastor, and we were all kind of taking turns. And so to tell you the history of how this came about, I was praying, God, help me, I need a message, got to share something, I don't know what to do. And I'm sitting here working on the cube and stuff like that, and God says, well, why don't you use what's in your hands? And I was like, sure, okay, well, what could I share about a Rubik's Cube that has anything to do with a church message? And he said, well, let me show you. And so he did, and so that's what I want to share with you today. So I have a working title for this. It's called Ruminations, Realizations, and Reflections on the Rubik's Cube and Real Life as it relates to righteousness and reality. I wanted to throw as many R's in there as I could. Just, so a long time I haven't changed. So the Rubik's Cube, what is it? It is a six-sided mechanical puzzle that turns about 3 axes to produce an almost endless number of combinations. The aim is to return the cube to a state where there is a distinct color on all 6 sides. Like this. Here are some fun facts about the Rubik's Cube. Invented in, does anybody know what year it was invented in? Anybody guess?
60s? I'm pretty sure it was like in the 19-something.
19-somethings? Yes, you're really close. It was invented in 1974. It took the inventor, Professor Ennio Rubik, over a month to solve it. So he created this puzzle. Another fun fact, the original Rubik's Cube was made out of wood. So it wasn't plastic, it was made out of wood. So
I heard another thing about it has 20 quintillion.
yeah, we're getting there. Hang on, you're jumping ahead. You're reading my notes, aren't you? All right, there's over 350 million Rubik's Cubes have been sold worldwide, probably more than that now. And then here is the calculation for the number of permutations. Okay, so permutations, just to explain that, it's kind of a big word for just means states that the Rubik Cube can be in, right? This is one, this is a different permutation. This is a different one. So how many of those are there in this cube? Your guess was? 20 quintillion?
20 quintillion.
Really close, actually. There's 43 quintillion permutations. Now, to put that in perspective, how many is that? 43 quintillion is a 43 followed by 18 zeros. Now, to put that in another perspective, if you had 43 quintillion dollars, you'd need a really big wallet, for one. And if you were to spend $1 trillion, which is a lot of money, it would take you, if you did $1 trillion a day, it would take you 118,000 years to spend that much money.
Wow,
That's how many different combinations there are. Now, I think there's some people in our government that are working on spending that much money. Anyways, if you managed to turn the Rubik's Cube every second, it would take you 1.4 trillion years to put it in every different combination. Anyways, how many people here know how to solve the Rubik's Cube?
I know Will does.
1, 2, 3. Okay, you guys are above average because here's the numbers. It is estimated that 5.8% of the world's population can solve the Rubik's Cube. And the rest of you that can't solve it, you should feel good. You're in the majority. That's 94.2% of people that cannot solve it. So don't feel bad. All right, and then the world record for solving the Rubik's Cube, I want you guys to look at this. These are all my notes here of all the times that the record has changed since 2016. So the record by Matt Volk back then was 5.5 seconds, and that's going from a mixed up scramble to solved. Okay, then there was Felix Zemdeg had 4.73 seconds, and then Sing Bayon Kacho, known as Steve, from the United States actually, was 4.59 seconds. I was like, holy cow. And then Matt Volk had the record for quite a long time, 4.74, and then 10 months ago, a young man by the name of Max Park has the current world record of 3.13 seconds. Yeah, it was insane. A little story about him, he actually has autism. He's a high-functioning autistic kid, lives with his parents, but he got onto the Rubik's Cube, and his ability to focus is just mesmerizing. I mean, he just, wow. did an amazing job. And the neat thing is the two guys, the record kept being passed back and forth between Felix Zemdig and Max. They would congratulate each other each time they would break the record, and it was really a neat to see. There's actually a Netflix documentary about some of that. So then we had to get robots involved and Legos. So there was a Lego robotic machine that was made that could solve the Rubik's Cube in 3.253 seconds. That was fascinating to watch. And then some engineers from MIT said, I think we could do it even faster. And they took rods and attached them to each axis. So each rod could film or could rotate the cube, and they used cameras and a computer, and they were able to actually take the cube from unsolved to solved in 1 second. 1 second. It was just crazy. Another fun fact is, for a long time, they thought that the minimum number of moves you could turn a cube from scrambled to solved was 25. And then they put all the formulas into a computer, and Google donated the time to crunch the numbers. It took 2 months to do all the calculations. They took every permutation, 43 quintillion, and they said from this combination to solved, what's the least number of moves from this, and then they did that 43 quintillion times. It took a lot of computing power. They discovered you can actually solve the cube from any scrambled position to solved in as few as 20 moves. I was like, yeah, whoa was right. I was like, wow. So then what that does is you realize these speed cubers, they're analyzing this and looking at it. When Max Parks solved his took 30 moves to go from the scramble to solved in 3.13 seconds, which means he was doing 10 moves or 10 rotations every second. Just phenomenal, amazing. Anyway, so how about the pieces of the Rubik's Cube? So if you look at a Rubik's Cube, you notice the colors here? You have blue on this side, green on this side, and then orange, and then red, yellow, and then white. Those colors are always opposite of each other, okay? This core, I wanted to show you that. This cube here is one of my originals. Has anybody taken a Rubik's Cube apart before?
Nope.
Yeah? Put her hand up, okay. So this is an edge piece, just has 2 colors. There's only 4 different types. Here's a corner, so it has 3 colors on it. So we'll take that off. And then just wanted to show you guys inside of this. This is kind of fun. If you can't solve a Rubik's Cube, this is another way to do it. What's that?
Was there hair inside yours? Because supposedly every Rubik's
Has a hair in it? I believe that. Wow, that is a lot stronger than. This is going to fit my message even better on some of these others. I wanted to show you guys the inside of the Rubik's Cube, because to me, when I finally took mine apart, so I got my first Rubik's Cube when I was 9, and it took until I was 10 to be able to solve it.
So it took
There we
you
go.
a year? When?
Yeah, I don't think there's too much inside that. There we go. So what I wanted to point out is when you're rotating this cube, the center one is not moving. It actually rotates. So here's the red one, so it's just rotating around. So those center ones, those have to be aligned in the right way to be able to get the colors to line up, and so they're right there. So that kind of helps you, like, you don't have to worry about solving these, you just have to solve everything around that. That has kind of an interesting point. So on the colors, so you have the edge has 3, or the edge has 2 rather, and then the corners have 3, and the center has 1. So this was really cool when it came to me. It says, all right, wait a minute. With these pieces, you notice how hard it was for me to take that cube apart? It was like kind of all stuck. Well, that has to do with this scripture we found in 1 Corinthians 12:12. This is New International Version. Unity and diversity in the body. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its parts form one body, so it is with Christ. So with this cube, it takes a lot of different kinds of parts. You got edge, you got corner, and you got center, and then it makes the whole cube. 1 Corinthians 12:18, but in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. Just like the person that created this cube, he designed each of these parts to be able to work together. And as there are many parts, but one body, and that's 1 Corinthians 12, verse 20. All right, so like I mentioned, I got the first Rubik's Cube when I was 9. I saved my money so I could get a book for a solution on how to solve the Rubik's Cube, because I tried and tried and tried it. It was really hard. And then finally when I got the book, I realized that point number 1 is there was a designer of the Rubik's Cube and there is a solution, right? And so realizing God is the designer of our lives, right? Somebody designed this Rubik's Cube and God designed our lives. So when you start with the Rubik's Cube, oh, somebody want to mix this up for me? Okay. So when, yeah, do as much as you want, mixing it all up. I got another example here. This is the actual Rubik's Cube that I had when I was 9 years old. It doesn't turn very easily. I've got stickers I had to put back on here with electrical tape. But one thing to note is that you want to start with the center. You see how these don't move? You want to pick one, and I pick white because it's the most visible. And so you start with that white one in the center, and then you start putting the pieces around that. And that's what I wanted to, you got it?
Yep.
Great, thank you. So we're looking on this cube here, and we're going to find the white one. It's right there. And so when I read the instructions, I couldn't believe this. This is kind of what got me started on this. Start with the center. Using white, it says in the book, the instruction book, just like the Bible's our instruction book, the Rubik's Cube book of instructions says, create a white cross. A white cross. I was like, are you serious? Does it really say? Yes, it says a white cross. And what do we have to do when we come to Jesus? We got to come to the cross. And so here we'll put white in the center. So we're going to just go around and we're going to look for the white edge pieces. So we're looking for white here. And then we're going to bring white up here, bring another white one. And then we're looking for another white one to bring up. So we'll bring it up like this. And we'll save that. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm also looking at some of the center pieces too as I go along, and I'll show you why in just a second. There we go. There you go. There's the white cross. Isn't that cool? You know, I never would have thought a Rubik's Cube would have a message in there with the cross, but God is in the center, and then we got to come to Jesus first, and so you start with the white cross. King James Version, Luke 9, chapter 9, verse 23, and he said to them, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up the cross daily and follow me. All right, and so now what we got to do is we've got to solve on the edges. So remember our first point, God is designer, and now we're going to solve the edges. Okay, so I like to show people how to do this. This helps kind of learn the Rubik's Cube. But you're looking for the white ones that are going to go up here. And remember, we're looking for those corner pieces that have 3 different colors. So here's, let's see, make sure I get that right. Here's blue, and this is going to be the red side and the green, etc. And so as we go around, we look for these, and I think of it like an elevator. You're like, okay, this is the elevator right here, and it can take pieces up and down. So if I bring this and put it in the elevator and bring it up, look at that. You got a corner piece. And then, oh, this one's kind of stuck up there, so we're going to bring it down, move it like that, then put it in the elevator and bring it up. See, just like that. Oh, this one's stuck in the basement, so we need to bring it up, move it around, bring it up. Now it won't go into the elevator, right? So we got to use the elevator on the other side of the building, bring it down, put it up. There you go, look at that. Good job, guys. Thanks for helping me. I appreciate that. You guys cheering me on. So now we got the top layer. Now, how many have ever solved one side of the Rubik's Cube? Like got all the white or blue, you got that? I did it before, but the edge pieces, I didn't know if you do it in the right way, you actually solve a third of the cube. And so if you notice, I was doing that so they would line up as they go down here. So I'm kind of solving it. I thought the Rubik's Cube was solved side by side when I first started, or like you solve this one and this one. Turns out it's solved in layers, kind of like a cake. But now we're on to the middle part, which is the easiest part. Did you have a question? You know how to do it too? Cool, awesome, maybe you can show me afterwards. So now we're on the middle here, which is just 4 edge pieces. So we're gonna look along here. Now, let's see, what else did I have? Fiddly join together. Okay, here's the fun part. When you have a Rubik's Cube and you're looking at these pieces right here, what I have in my mind is algorithms or steps, right? Where I've learned to rotate this and this, and a lot of them you repeat over and over again. How many times in life you're like, I thought I already learned this lesson. But somehow God's got to teach it to me again. I've got to learn it all over. Well, there are steps you have to do, and you have to do them over and over again. And what you're looking for is different patterns in the cube. So one thing that I want to remind everybody is that point number 2 is that God knows the solution. As I'm working through this, those of you that know how to solve the cube, you know how to get to the next step. You're already thinking about it in your mind. Well, that's the amazing part about God. God already knows the solution for our lives. A lot of times if we just trust him, if we pray to him and we ask him for guidance and wisdom, he's going to show us what to do. But a lot of times we don't know yet. Well, I'm looking at this cube and I know the solution. Not the exact solution for this scramble, but pretty close. And so as I'm looking at it, I'm going, what are we going to do? So you guys are going to help me again here. So we've got this edge piece here. We need to put it up here. Here's green, here's red, and we need to put it up here into this corner. So what we do is we just do this little thing like this, and there you go. That put that corner piece right up in there. What's that?
I forgot you learned it.
Upside down, yeah. And I'm doing this different. I learned from the top down. Speed cubers flip it over. They solve the white cross without looking. They look at the cube and then they create the white cross, and then they put in the edges and go up this way, so they don't have to take the time to flip the cube over. So yeah, I'm old school, so I learned how to solve the cube before that solution was even invented. So all right, so then here is blue and red. So looking around for the blue and red, it's stuck up here. That's in the wrong spot, but we could find the one that goes here to knock that one out. So here is, you ever had that before? You're like, something's in the way? Like God says, I'd really like to do this for you, but you kind of got something in the way. You might have to move that out of the road. So we're going to move this one. We're going to do the same steps we just did, but we're going to reverse it. We're going to do it this way. There you go. So that happened to knock that one out. So it's over here. Here's blue and red. And so now we need to put that one up in there. There you go. Cool, 2 layers. So we're working our way down. Now, this is an interesting thing. Do you realize that when you get to this point, how many would feel good about getting this point, solve the Rubik's Cube? Yeah, I know I was. For a long time, that's all I could do. I couldn't solve the bottom. There's this young lady in my class. I could solve this layer, and she knew how to do the middle layer, and I hadn't learned that yet. And so I'd take my cube to her, and she'd solve it like this. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I would try to solve the bottom, and I'd mess it up. I was like, oh, no. Do you realize you can't solve the rest of this cube without messing this up?
You have to.
Short of taking it apart, yes, you have to mess this up. How many have ever felt that way in life before? You're like, God, got me to this point, I'm good. Don't mess me up. Don't make me change. I don't wanna, don't mess up what's already good right here. But sometimes God has to move things around and change things in order to work out his perfect solution in your life. So the bottom layer. So remember, what was our first point? God's the designer, the white cross. God knows the solution. And then we're going to take a look at those solutions for the bottom. Now, in the Bible, it talks more about patterns than I realized. I realized with the Rubik's Cube, I'm looking for certain patterns in the bottom of this cube. And when I see a certain pattern, then I do a certain number of steps. And then when there's a different pattern that develops, then I do another sequence of steps. So we can see in Exodus 25, verse 40, God was telling them, see that you make them according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain. And that was God talking about the items that were for the tabernacle. And he was explaining to them he had a very specific way that he wanted it done. Just like there's a specific way to solve this cube here. Numbers 8, verse 4, this is how the lampstand was made. It was made of hammered gold from its base to its blossoms. The lampstand was made exactly like the pattern that the Lord had shown Moses. And then moving into the New Testament, Romans chapter 12, verse 2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you might be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So we're looking at patterns. God has a pattern for us, and there's patterns in these cubes. So we're almost there. You see that we have to mess this up to get to the end. Now, this is the hard part because you're like, okay, let's see if we can do this. Okay, that just created the yellow cross on the bottom. I got fortunate on that. But this is the yellow cross, and now we're looking to solve these edge pieces to get all the yellow on the whole side. So let's see if I can do this.
Also keep in mind, you learned a completely different way when you first started cube when you were younger, and then relearn it again when I started doing it.
Yes, that is a good point. The method that I learned was what they knew at the time. They found out that it could only go so fast, so they created another method for solving the cube. And so when I taught Willie, I taught him the newer method, and he very quickly became faster than me. His times kept going down, and I was trying to learn. And then I noticed something, that most of the algorithms are right-handed. And so Willie helped me rewrite the algorithms to be left-handed, because I'm left-handed. So anyways, my mind goes back and forth on all of those.
Rewriting a bunch of those algorithms ended up helping me get faster too, because it would save me like 2 moves.
Two moves on
something,
each
just
one,
doing it
yeah.
left-handed instead.
So, all right, so what do we have? God is a designer, God knows the solution, and then, so we're gonna try to do this here. Let's see if we can do this. No. Okay, cool. All right, you guys are gonna get to see it start over. So here's the interesting thing. This is probably good that this happened. If you have a cube and you like get to the end like that and you mess it up, like it doesn't go back just like a couple of steps. You go like way back to here. How many have had that in life? You're like, okay, God, I'm doing really good, and then you'll make this one little thing. And, oh man, it's like go back here. Yeah, okay, that's what just happened. So. Okay, so we're back to here. That's how far back we went. And then with this, you look for a hook. I don't have one of those, so I gotta do this. Gotta do this.
Now you're missing one edge.
Nope, thank you. Oh, I got one more edge to put up there. There we go. Did I get them all?
Nice, good.
Cool. That's why that didn't work. Thank you. All right, so we'll try that again. So we're getting closer on that. There we go. Ooh, we're getting close again. Yay, no pressure.
How long do you think how long do you think it would be able to take you to fix it? I can scramble.
To like from a scramble?
Yes.
My fastest time is like 54 seconds or so, but I will,
Are you down to the 40s yet?
I was not
I think
quite.
you were close.
Closer.
Close enough.
Will's in the 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah, into the 20s. So yeah.
How many moves are unnecessary, or, you know, in the percentage wise? You know, I mean, you can't take it from beginning to end, and every move has a purpose.
Yep.
I mean, how many of the moves don't have a purpose?
Exactly, and there's a lot of these. There's a series of sequences that I've learned that keep it fairly simple. There's like 20 different algorithms, I would say, that I've learned, and it can solve the cube, but I have to keep doing them over and over again just to move things around until that gets into place and I can move to the next step. So a lot of those rinse and repeat, like, okay, God, you helped me learn this lesson, but I haven't really moved on yet. I gotta kind of keep learning it. If the more experienced cubers have learned more and more algorithms, a lot of the cubers have 120 to 200 algorithms memorized. And so they can see certain situations where they recognize the cubes and the patterns, and they say, oh, I remember that one algorithm, I haven't used it for 7 months, but they remember that one, and it moves those 2 cubes right where they need them with that simple algorithm, and then boom, they didn't have to do the 17 other moves that I would have to do. And so that makes them much more efficient.
And what's an example of an algorithm? What is that? Is it?
Oh, an algorithm, good point. Yeah, so if you're an algorithm here, let's say we're gonna do,
Fish.
what's that?
The yellow fish is really simple.
Yellowfish one. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So it would be like left, this is your left and this is your right, up and down and face and back. And so it might say like turn this left negative or counterclockwise. And then see, I'll just do this real quick. So there you go. That series or sequence I just memorized was like left counterclockwise, back clockwise or counterclockwise from the back, and then spin the up and then down. So it'll be this series of letters. Let's see, I didn't bring it with me. There's a series of letters that can constitute an algorithm. So left or right hand side, top or bottom, and minus or plus for clockwise and counterclockwise, and that's an algorithm. So, Willie, you got something?
And I think you learned it clockwise, counterclockwise. I learned it as prime or non-prime.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like the yellow fish, my version is RU, R prime, U, RU2, R prime. And so a prime just means counterclockwise, and if it's just normal, it's just clockwise.
Right.
And the cool thing with the yellow fish is if you do it 3 times, it'll go back to where it was before. But
I have a question.
Okay. Then I got my last point to make.
So you, when the cube is like normal, as in like that, do you think it's possible to solve it again, as in like mixing it up and like trying to solve it again while it's in motion?
While it's in motion.
Yeah, like you're mixing it up, but
scrambling
as
it.
you're mixing it
Oh,
up,
oh.
you try to fix it.
Well, what that's a good question. Yes, in a sense, because I like do my own scrambles where I'll just mix it all up and then I just start solving it. But you do have to make a decision at some point where it's scrambled. A cube isn't just gonna naturally solve itself when you just scramble it more and more. Life doesn't work out that way.
Sadly.
But at some point you gotta decide, I'm not scrambling it anymore, now I'm gonna try to solve the cube. And you gotta be on purpose trying to put the pieces in the right place because there's a pattern. This cube right here for a solved cube, that's the only place it can be. It couldn't be down here. If it is, it's not solved, right? Here's an example of the most mixed up a cube can be, because if mixed up would be the same 2 colors not touching each other, right? It's actually kind of cool. It makes a really neat pattern. Some of you guys might have done this before.
That's a checkered board.
The cube's not solved. It's actually pretty fast to solve it from here because you recognize the pattern, right? Each one of these colors aren't touching each other. It's one of the most scrambled cubes, but yet just a simple rotation like this, and now it's solved.
And that's not an algorithm, that's a reversing of the scramble.
Yeah,
There's
you
2 ways to solve it.
Mhm.
Reverse the scramble in order or the algorithm.
Right. And the scramble, what they do for competitions is they have somebody that scrambles it up, which is a preset scramble, but there's 43 quintillion possibilities. And then the solver has to try to find the shortest method to get it back to look like this. Yeah.
Can I solve it in a weird way and try to let you fix it?
Well, let me finish this here. So, what was point number 1? God is the designer, right? So there's the designer of the cube, but for our life, God is the designer. And number 2, God knows the solution, right? And that's one thing else I wanted to remember. So to me, the solution on this cube is not that complicated. It's just a series of steps that I've learned. So if we look at our lives feel very complicated, but Jesus is looking over here and he's saying, the solution is simple. Just trust me. So that this may seem complicated at this time, but yet remember the answer is simple and the answer is Jesus. And the final point, where was this cube when it was being solved? Was it over here? In my hands. And that's where all of us are. when God's working out the problems in our lives. You know, he's rotating those, he's changing things, he's trying to work things out. And if we'll just trust him and allow him to move things in our lives, it may not be comfortable. You know, we might have the top part of this solved, but down here it's still a mess, and God's working on us the whole time. I just want to remind everybody that this cube, when I was working on it and solving it, it was in my hands, and it was in motion, in God's hands. God is holding you in his hands the whole time while he works out the solution in your life. Amen? Amen. So there you have it. There's the lessons that I learned. God taught me and showed me through a Rubik's Cube, a fun puzzle that I was working on since I was 9, and I solve it most every day or so. I'll just solve the cube. It's a great thing to get my mind going and my troubleshooting mind working again, and try to remember it. And Will and I'll go back and forth with competition sometimes. He's still way faster than me, so pretty awesome. So anyways, I just want to say thank you for joining us and appreciate everything that God was able to show me and that I was able to share with you.